It's time to take a new approach to finding true fulfillment in your career, health, and state of mind through insightful conversations with those who have found their professional and personal passions while achieving balance. Whether it's entrepreneurs, athletes, or healthcare professionals, we bring you real people, real growth right here on the Boost Podcast. Now, here's your host, Elena Lipson.
Hey Boost Squad, and welcome to episode 28. Elena Lipson here, and I am super excited to introduce today's featured guest, Daniel Gefen. Daniel, are you ready to join the Boost Squad?
I am ready to boost.
So before we dive into today's episode, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Mosaic Growth Partners. Mosaic Growth Partners provides growth strategy consulting to entrepreneurs and organizations in the healthcare and older adult baby boomer market. They can help you bring a new product or service to market, identify and engage new customers and partners, or grow your market share. They also provide coaching and training. For more information, go to mosaicgrowth.com. That's mosaicgrowth.com. Now back to today's featured guest.
So Daniel is the host of the Can I Pick Your Brain podcast, as well as the founder of Jet Virtual, a telephone answering service and virtual office business with locations all over the world. And he's also the co-founder of Get Featured, which helps small brands go from obscurity to celebrity. And although he's built a successful career, Daniel has certainly had his ups and downs, which we'll get into today. At the age of 23, Daniel had a 6-figure salary, and that was right before he went broke and was evicted onto the streets of California with his wife and son. So they returned to London, where he took a job as a cashier for about a year before he couldn't take it anymore and just had to get back to being an entrepreneur. So he started Jet Virtual, and through persistence and a lot of cold calling, he grew the business. All was going well until one of his key team members abruptly quit, and his landlord sold the building, and he was told he needed to vacate the space. After those two blows, he wasn't sure that he was going to be able to continue to run the business, but then he got the idea to outsource his business to one of his competitors. And this allowed him to scale faster and eliminate his staff and equipment, thereby freeing him up to work from anywhere. Using this approach, he spent a year working out of a hotel lobby before he semi-retired on passive earnings at age 31. So, Daniel, this is quite a story, and there's so much more I want to know. First, though, I want to really understand how Jet Virtual works so we can get a sense of how it's possible to outsource your business and have the success that you found doing that. So if you could start by telling us 3 things that we should know about Jet Virtual, that would be awesome.
Okay, well, before I do that, I just want to congratulate you on being able to take my whole entire life and put it in a 60-second blurb. That was really good. I mean, literally, I'm going to use that in my bio. I'm going to actually play that back and type it out to use in my bio because it was really, really well done. So thank you.
Thank you. It's a very interesting story.
So in terms of outsourcing, I want to go back to the point in my life where I had to make the decision to outsource, because it wasn't a decision that I planned. It wasn't something that I kind of woke up one morning and I said, oh, I've got a really good idea. I should outsource everything in my business to one of my competitors. Like, that just didn't come to mind. And, it would be it almost sounds like a stupid idea, right? But it came out of a sense of urgency. And one of the things that I've learned is that we only really take action when we feel a sense of urgency. When we feel that there's an emergency situation, that's when people really take major action. So I feel like, I can't really take credit for coming up with this brilliant idea to outsource. But what I can say is that I've learned that if we create for ourselves situations of urgency, like situations of emergencies, we'll get a lot more done. So that's just the first thing I wanted to just mention. So going back to that point in time where like you said, my receptionist called up, my head receptionist, she was literally in charge of, most of the tasks in the business. And she called up and she said that she needed to quit. She was suicidal. And on that day, I had the same, that same day I had the landlord of the office saying that we needed to leave the office. They gave us, I think it was like 4 weeks notice, which was really not enough. And it was at that point where I really felt that I was going to lose my company, and I was desperate and I had no idea what I was going to do. And there was like this fire under my backside, and I had to get creative. Like I didn't have a choice. And I remember calling up my business mentor, Gefen, and I was in this negative mindset. I was stuck in a negative mindset, and I was just for 20 minutes telling him about how I can't do this and how this is a problem and I don't know how I'm going to solve this issue and that issue and that. And after 20 minutes of listening to me, he just said, "Daniel, shut up." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Stop feeling so sorry for yourself. Like, stop focusing on all the problems and come up with a solution." And then he like hung up the phone on me. And I remember the first thing I thought was, what an ass. But then the next thing that came to mind was think of a solution, like come up with a solution. Like he's right. People tend to kind of love being in the kind of that negative, poor me place, and you can't get things done when you're in that place, right? When the minute you come out of that mindset, the minute you switch it and you say, okay, what can I do? And you start focusing on a solution rather than a problem, then suddenly like doors open that you could never imagine.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, sometimes you just need your back to be against the wall before you realize like you got to do something, because it's really easy to get complacent, when things are kind of humming along. And hopefully, we continue to do things before we get into those desperate situations. But it's funny, what you're saying reminds me of a podcast I recently heard on Tim Ferriss's show with Cory Booker, where he was in, a situation that, just things just were not going well. And then this woman gave him advice and just said, you just need to do something, which is basically what you're saying too. And so, I think that's something I've heard before, and there's a lot of truth to it.
Right. And I mean, I'm sure that there are people listening to this that may say, okay, well, great. You were in a situation that was an emergency, but what if you're not in an emergency? What if there's nothing really pushing you? Like, what if your back isn't against the wall? Then what? And my answer to that is, so create a fire. Like, seriously, create a fire. And what do I mean by that? So some examples I can give, and of course there are, tons of examples you can give, but just to name a few. When I started my podcast show, I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I didn't know how to record a podcast. I didn't even know what a podcast was, but I knew that I enjoyed speaking, and I went on someone's podcast show for the very first time and I loved it. And I thought, wow, I've got to do this, right? But I knew that unless I like create some sort of urgency, I'm never going to actually do it. Right? Because everybody says, oh, you know what? I should start a podcast show. Oh, you know what? I should write a book. Oh, I should start a YouTube vlog, or I should do whatever, right? And then you kind of just, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I just need this and this and this in place, and then I'll be able to do it, right? It's all crap, right? They're all excuses, and it's just like there's a disease going around, called excuse-itis, right? Where everybody's got all these excuses. It's absolute nonsense. So how do you create that fire? So one way to do it is to create the pressure, public pressure. So what I did was I went on Facebook and publicly announced that, hey guys, hey everybody, I'm going to be starting a podcast show, and it's going to launch in 2 weeks from today. And so I pretty much set myself up. Like, I put myself a deadline, and people will call me out, yep. Right? One of the things, we're very motivated by fear, right? So a lot of times we won't do certain things because we're worried what people are going to think of us. So I say, that's incredible. Use that. Like, use the very thing that motivates you not to do something. Use that to get you to do something. So if I go on public record and tell everybody I'm going to do X, whether it's publish a book or start a podcast show or launch a product, whatever it is, if I put myself out there, so now I'm using that fear of not wanting to look like a fool in front of everybody. I'm using it to my benefit. And now I've got to do it, because otherwise people are going to think, people are then going to say, oh, he's a schmoozer. He's a talker, right? Every time he says he's going to do something, he doesn't do it. I don't want to have that reputation. So if I'm going to say something, I want to get it done, because I want people to think of me as somebody who's a doer, somebody who takes action. And you can use that in so many ways. I mean, just get creative with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had the exact same thing happen with my podcast, and my story is almost identical to yours. And you do sometimes just need to put yourself out there, whether it's publicly on social media or just, face to face with people that so that you have something to hold yourself accountable. Because otherwise it's really easy to negotiate with yourself and talk yourself out of doing something, or waiting, or making those excuses, like you said.
Yeah, 100%.
So I want to understand a little bit more now that you've kind of given us that background of your mindset. So you were kind of in this place where you knew that your business was at a turning point. Either you were going to figure out a solution to move forward, or you were going to have to shut down. So you obviously moved forward. So tell us a little bit about Jet Virtual and how it works, and especially in relation to how you were able to outsource this so you could create the kind of life that you wanted.
Okay, so Jet Virtual, originally it was a telephone answering. I mean, it still is a telephone answering service. But when I say originally, I mean I was the receptionist. Like day one, Daniel Gefen sitting at the phone. Well, first I needed to get my first client. So I would cold call. I literally just sat there cold calling random companies, asking them if they needed, to outsource their telephone calls, right? Because there are times in a day where maybe the receptionist is busy, or maybe she's on lunch, maybe she's sick for the day, maybe there's, a busy period of the day. And so during those times, they could basically transfer the call to me at Jet Virtual, and we'll answer the call, we'll answer it in their company name, we'll take a message, and then we'll relay the message to them, and away you go. And it was a very cost-effective way. Instead of them having to hire extra staff, they could pay, as little as, $50 a month, and they can get their calls answered for them. So that's how it started. And then eventually, as I got more clients, I was then able to hire my first receptionist, and then slowly build it up, and then hire another receptionist until I had a whole team of receptionists. The issue that I found was that my skill set is, I've got sales, I'm entrepreneurial, I think out of the box, I'm very creative, I'm great at networking. But one of the things that don't fit on my side of, my skill set is managing people and dealing with day to day, the grind, the boring stuff. And so I found myself spending 90% of my time doing things I'm not good at and things I hate. So for example, having to tell a receptionist off because she didn't handle a call properly, and then she cries, and then I'm feeling guilty because I didn't handle it the right way, and then she's all stroppy, and then now it's just awkward, and right, I don't deal with that. I don't know how to deal with that, right? Or chasing a client because they didn't pay me, and I'm kind of like, I don't want to be too pushy because I might lose them as a client, but at the same time, they owe me money. So, like, how dare they? Like, I have to put food on the table. Like, why are they not paying me? You get so, emotional about it. And one of the things I learned along the way is that as a business owner, it's a really bad idea to be the debt collector, because you get way too emotionally involved. And when you get too emotionally involved, a number of things happen. Number one is you waste way too much time. So I could be chasing somebody who owes us, $67, and I've spent 20 hours. It's like I'm basically paying myself less than what I would pay a minor to work. Like, what am I doing, right? It's ridiculous. That's number one. Number two is because I'm so emotionally charged, so then I can't focus on the positive things in the business. I can't focus on building the business because I'm so depressed. I feel so angry with this person that they're not paying me. The third thing is that then my communication with the person is going to be emotionally charged, and therefore they're going to get defensive. So that was, one of the number of things that I needed to just step away from. Yeah. And so 90% of what I was doing was the wrong things. And I was only doing 10% of the building and the creativity and that kind of thing. So fast forward to that point where I told you where I almost gave up the business, I came up with the idea to outsource everything. So I ended up firing all of my staff. I got rid of the office. I got rid of all the equipment. And I made a deal with one of my competitors that they would do all the grunt work. Like they would do they would basically deliver the service. But I would keep the clients, meaning the clients would still be under the Jet Virtual brand. And I would be the face of the company. Jet Virtual would be the face of the company. And the competitor would obviously act as Jet Virtual. And that relationship has lasted now almost 8 years. It has been absolutely incredible. And once I did that, I realized, hey, hold on, if I can outsource that, I can outsource my bookkeeping, my debt collecting, my sales. I can outsource everything, right? And that's essentially what I ended up doing. So instead of me chasing invoices, I hired a guy called Andy to chase invoices. And instead of doing sales, I hired a girl called Kerry to do the sales. And it was amazing when I could literally just look at my phone. There's an email. There's a new sale that just came in. And I didn't have anything to do with the sale. And now what happens is automatically that sale turns into, gets sent to the company that I'm using who delivers the service. And then they basically talk to the client, set them up. The invoice gets sent out because Andy sends it out. If it doesn't get paid, then Andy chases them until it does get paid. And even if it doesn't get paid, okay, we write it off, but that's it. And this all happens without me being involved. I'm literally just working on building the business up, like finding new creative ways to come up with, joint ventures or, ideas to offer new services or whatever it is. So that's basically how it happened. And that allows me now to basically spend about an hour a week on that particular business. And now I spend time on my podcast show and my new company that I launched a couple of months ago. And of course, I get to play tennis and go to the beach and hang out with my 4 children and my wife. And people say it's a dream come true, but I really believe that anyone can do it. I challenge people to do that. There's no reason we live in a world where everything can be controlled by your mobile phone, your cell phone. I mean, you could literally be on the beach in the Bahamas and running your business from your cell phone. There's absolutely I challenge anybody to tell me why not. Like, give me a good reason why not. And I'll give you a good reason why you can.
Yeah, I mean, so that sounds lovely. I mean, I would love to have that life. So I am going to press you a little bit. Before I do that, I want to point out something really important that you said. So Daniel was talking about how he knows what his strengths are and what he likes to do. And he was self-aware enough to realize that he was getting pretty far away from that. So if you were sitting there and you were feeling frustrated and just like you're not doing what you're meant to be doing, take a minute and think about what's really going on there, because more likely than not, you're probably spending time on things that you might not be that good at and neglecting really your strengths that can help you take your business or your life to that next level. So that's something that Daniel did really well. And a lot of times people are so stuck in whatever it is that they're doing that they don't always really have the clarity to step back and see what's really happening. So I love that you brought that up, Daniel. But going back to, what you were saying, you challenge anyone to go and do this. So let's dive into this a little bit, because I want to understand a couple things. So this all sounds great. I would love to outsource everything as well, but I want to understand how, first of all, do you find the right people to outsource to? How do you vet them and know not only that they're going to do a really good job, so you're not going to have to micromanage them, but then how do you structure the business model so that you're still able to make money off of them? I mean, I would think if they're good, they're probably not going to be super cheap if they're really good at what they do. So talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, according to your logic, then how do you hire anybody, right? Meaning whether you have in-house or outsource, you're still hiring people who need to be top quality. Otherwise, they're gonna take your business to the ground. So to me, there's no difference between finding somebody who's a gem or a diamond in the rough who comes into your office every day and sits there and works in your office, or somebody who's sitting in a different part of the world. To me, there's no difference. At the end of the day, it's not about what they look like, right? So what makes someone a good candidate, right? It's the skill set. It's the personality, it's whatever it is, but it's not, they don't have to physically be there. So that's number one. Number one is, either way, to grow a business, you can't do it on your own, right? There's no such thing as a successful business that can only be, you and that's it. Unless, of course, you want to do a lifestyle business, which is fine, but then you're going to be trading, your dollars for time. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing. The second thing, in terms of actually finding the right people, it's a mix of putting the effort in and the time and luck. Like I'm not gonna pretend that I am some guru like hiring guy that just has the magic wand that I can just find anybody anywhere, and it doesn't work like that. You get lucky, but also if you try, it's like anything else. It's a numbers game, right? Eventually you're gonna find someone. If you hit the ball enough times, you'll hit it exactly where you want it to go, right? If you, in anything in life, if the more you do something, eventually the statistics work for you, mm-hmm. right? People who sit there and go, oh, but I can't outsource this because I'll never find. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You shouldn't outsource it because you won't find anyone, because you're sitting there thinking that you won't, and therefore you probably won't. But somebody who says, I need to outsource this, I'm gonna find someone to outsource this. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier. If you've got an emergency, you'll find a way. Trust me, you will find a way. I guarantee it. Okay, because I interviewed a guy today on my show who was in the military, and he was a submarine diver. And they were by the coast of Syria, and a bomb went off, an explosion went off, and it made a hole in the submarine, and there was water gushing in the submarine. Now, if they sat there and said, "Oh, there's a problem, there's water coming. Oh, there's no way we're going to solve." Yeah, they'll die. Right? There's no time to think about the problem. You have to think of a solution. So if you set yourself a deadline. If you make yourself a deadline that I'm going to outsource this by this time, and that's it, then you'll find someone. In my case, I had to find people because otherwise my business would have gone, down under. It would have been finished. So I needed to find people.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And, one of the things that you've done really well is you found this main partner that you've outsourced the majority of Jet Virtual to. And so you've obviously kind of figured out what are some of the important characteristics in a partner. And that's something that I've struggled with at times when I look at partnerships, and sometimes it's really hard to make them work. So can you share with us some of what you found to be important characteristics to have in a partner that is going to work with you, or just in general?
Yeah. Okay. That's a great question. So for me, it all comes down to, do you remember how earlier I said that I have this list of skill sets that I'm really good at and that I like? And then on the other side, I have a list of things I don't like and I'm not good at. So, if you want to visualize it, or if you want to take out a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle of the paper, on the right-hand side, you could list all the things that you enjoy doing and that you're good at. And on the left-hand side, write down all the things that you absolutely hate and you're not good at, right? Okay. The partner that you're looking for is somebody who has all the things on the left side of your sheet of paper.
That's great.
So for me, when I started Get Featured, notice that I'm a co-founder, right? I could have started it myself, right? I started my own company. Actually started 2 companies. So why with this company did I decide to take a partner? The answer is because I learned my lesson that I need somebody who's going to do all the things that I basically hate or suck at. And so I partnered with a guy called Jeremy Slate, who, he's very good at organizing. He's on top of the admin side, making sure that everything gets done. And those are all the things I'm not good at and I hate doing. So, and there's a lot of other things that I can also talk about in terms of a partner. Number one is trust. Because if you can't trust the partner, then forget about it, right? That, they're going to go and screw you, because there's so many stories of partners screwing partners over, or even if you just don't get along, you don't want to work with somebody who you dread getting on the phone with. So for me, I think there's three things that I really look for in a partner. Number one is they've got to have all like the skill sets that I don't like or I'm not good at. Number two is I've got to trust them. Like Jeremy, I honestly trust with my bank account. Like if I gave him my bank details, I could sleep well at night. I don't have to worry that he's going to go and take all my money out and disappear to who knows where, right? And number three is it's got to be somebody that you enjoy being with. Like I enjoyed talking to Jeremy. I found that, our conversations were pleasant. We had a good laugh. And that's really important, because it's like when you get married, you want to get married to somebody you enjoy being with, because you're going to be spending a long time with them, right? I've been married now over 10 years. So your business partner is pretty much like your marriage partner. I spend hours every day speaking and dealing with my business partner. And the same thing with people who you outsource to as well, is somebody who's pleasant to deal with. And the fourth thing is they've got to be passionate and hungry. Like they've got to be somebody who has a fire under their backside, like somebody who's wanting to like move. You don't want to hire people who are kind of just, well, yeah, I guess I can get that done. Like just forget about those people. Like you don't want to deal with them. If you have to keep motivating people the whole time, you're spending all your energy on motivating people. Do you want to be a motivation like guy or girl, or do you want to build a company? So hire people or partner with somebody who's self-motivated, who's excited about what you're doing.
Yeah, I love those tips. They're so on point, and looking through them, I can look back and see, some of the times when I thought about partnering with people. And if I look at those 4 kind of criteria you gave, a lot of times they were missing 1 or 2 of them. And so it makes sense to me, why they didn't seem like good partnerships in my mind. But, I'm definitely going to take these four characteristics that you mentioned and start applying them when I'm looking for partners in the future. I think you're spot on there. So let me shift gears a little bit. It sounds like you've built this business that allows you to do the things that you love in life, but I know that you probably do work pretty hard as well. So talk to me a little bit about how you take time for self-care and just to enjoy life.
So great question. And the answer is because I've set myself up in a way that I don't need to be anywhere at a specific time. It allows me to take time when I need it. So here's the thing. Most people, the vast majority of the population, what they do is they take a 2-week or 3-week vacation during the same, July, August, whatever it is, right? I think that's really dumb, because who says that that's when you're going to need time off? Right. Like, what if that's the time when you're like, rah, let's go do something, right? Like you don't know what mood you're in. Like I wake up in different moods every day. Some days I wake up and I'm feeling like I'm on fire and I can get like a ton of stuff done within a couple of hours today, like just back to back nonstop. You know what? Today I haven't eaten. I had breakfast at around 9 o'clock this morning and I haven't eaten. It is now 8:30 at night.
Wow, okay, I need to get on that diet.
No, and it's not a diet. It's just I don't need to eat because I'm on, right? I'm switched on. Now, yesterday I woke up and I'm like, oh crap, not on a day. I don't want to do anything. Like I can't be bothered to do anything. Okay, so I went to the beach, took the day off, went to the beach, and even if I have things in my schedule, I have the flexibility to send an email, because that's all it takes nowadays is you turn on your phone and you send an email and you go, hey, I'm unfortunately won't be able to make it today. Can we reschedule? Boom, rescheduled, empty the calendar, go to the beach, chill, and enjoy it. And then what happens is when you take that time off, which you need, because a lot of people, they try to push through it. They're like, oh, I can't be, but I have to. Oh, but and the problem with that is then you just end up burning out. And so then you're less productive. Whereas I go to the beach for the day, take the day off, and then the next day I wake up and I'm like, boom, I'm on fire. Now I can, I don't know how long that's going to last. Meaning I could last for a day, I could last for a week, I could last for a month, I could last for 6 months. And I don't take vacation when I don't need to. I don't take time off if I don't need to. If I want to go play tennis, I'll go play tennis. If I want to go to the gym, I'll go to the gym. If I want to take my wife out for the day and spend the day with her, I'll do that. If I want to take my kids out of school and spend time with them, I'll do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's important to listen to yourself and what you need and realize that when you're running your own business, you are in control of your time. Even if you have clients, if you give them that ability to kind of pull the strings of, having you available whenever they want, you're not going to have any control of your life. And I think a lot of times people forget that because you want to be so customer focused. But one of the benefits of working for yourself is having that control over your life and your time. And so I like how you described how you do that. So Daniel, you gave us a lot of great tips today, and I want to close with one more from you. Can you give us a parting piece of guidance that we can think about, over the next couple of days?
Wow, that's so open. There's so many things. Wow. I would say to try and get into the habit of producing more. Because right now I feel like we're living in a generation where there's so much information out there. So we end up scrolling through our Facebook feed and we go through all the YouTube videos and motivational, and we read books and we listen to podcasts like this, which is wonderful and you should, but we produce so much less than we consume. And I feel like that's an issue for those that want to create something in their life. For those of you that don't, that's fine. But for people who want to create something in their life, the way to create an impact is to produce. And the only way you can produce is to create. For me, I'll give you an example. When I read a book, I have a rule that I read a chapter and then I stop and I have to apply something that I learned from that chapter. I have to produce something. Because otherwise you're just going to read the whole book and most of the things that you learn in that book are going to be already forgotten. Whereas if you take each chapter and you create something, you do whatever it is from that chapter, then you're going to end up producing throughout consuming the book. And my challenge to those listening would be like this, of all the YouTube videos that you watched this year, of all the podcast shows that you've listened to, how many videos have you produced yourself? Right? Ask yourself that question. How many videos have you produced? And how many podcast shows or audio content have you produced? Of all the books that you've read, how many books have you written? Of all the blogs that you've read, how many blog posts have you written? And if you keep that question in your mind, you'll remind yourself that you need to become a producer, right? I see people all the time, they go to Tony Robbins events and they go to all these different motivational speakers and they sit there and they're like oohing and eyeing and wow. And I love Tony Robbins. Don't get me wrong. I love the guy. I think he's amazing. I think he's an angel. But the question that I ask myself if I'm standing in a crowd watching Tony on stage is, why am I in the audience and Tony's on stage? Why am I not on stage and Tony's in the audience? And the only answer to that question is because I bought a ticket and I'm in the audience. Tony got on stage. That's the only difference.
Yeah, I like that. So get into the habit of producing and consuming more so that you can get on stage. I hope today's episode inspires you to think more about how you can find your passion and live your best life. For more information, including links to resources that Daniel and I chatted about today and how best to get in touch with him, head on over to our website, theboostpodcast.com, and check out our show notes from this episode and catch the Boost bonus. Daniel, I want to thank you for sharing your journey with us today. And remember, anything is possible for you.
Now that you've completed this episode, the next step is to join the Boost Squad for strategic insights, tips, and tricks, as well as exclusive resources designed specifically to accelerate your personal and professional growth. All this and more is waiting for you at theboostpodcast.com.